All right. Hello and welcome to my live stream of how voting could work if government cared. And that is a massive if, of course. And the point of this stream is really to double check. All right. The point of this stream is not so much to sell you on an idea of how we could be doing voting, but to show how easy it would be if government wanted our opinion about something, how easy this whole voting process could be. Because right now it's an absolute mess. I think that you can't find anyone who thinks voting is working well. It's super expensive, it's painful, no one gets the answers that they want. There's just nothing good about it. And in theory, you have this guy here on the left, and you have government or a courthouse on the right. And what the government should be wanting to do is say, well, we're representing the people. What do they want? And we'll figure out how to do it. And that it should be that easy. And then what we have in the middle, of course, are politicians. So we have many people, and then less politicians, and then even less government. There's one government. It just goes up down the chain. We have one large institution, and we have a bunch of people representing even more people. And those people in the middle, the politicians, you would think their goal would be to figure out what the people want. And then once they know what the people want, to go to the government and say, how are we going to get there? That should be the simple goal of all of this. And as we know, that's not really how it works out at all. So I want to go through this app. Like this is how easy it could be. Like if we wanted to make the voting process simple, this isn't a matter of money. You could offer a student like a $50,000 prize, and students would develop this for you. They might even do it for free, like if you just keep doing class projects and they keep adding to it in an open source way. So let's say you get to this website, your local government website, and you click log in to vote. And here in San Diego, you have some elections. You have John Cox, Gavin Newsom for governor. I barely know anything about either of those people, but maybe you could just click in here and then you can get some more information. We have Dianne Feinstein. I think she was the one running, and not Kamala. And the guy who got the most number of votes, this is how absurd our democracy is getting. You know, I pay attention to a lot of politics, and I've never heard of this James Bradley guy, and he's the second running in my Senate seat, which should be a big thing in California. But since he was so little known and I couldn't find any funny pictures, I didn't even give him a picture here. So there's James there, and then we're going to have this unmentionable race down in the lower left. And then the race that I wanted to talk about today, and I didn't get her permission, so I just assume that she's not watching live. It's Genevieve Jones-Wright and Summer, actually I don't even know her last name. We'll go to the next place. Summer Stephan. So suppose you were on this website and you logged in and you wanted to vote for your district attorney, but you didn't know anything about the race. So you could get in here, and this would all be, this isn't government run, this is publicly run, this is open source, and if you don't like how someone else developed this, you could go to someone else's implementation. And so you would go and you'd see some of the basics, and you have a summary here on the screen. You could see, I think that we shouldn't just have a voting day, we should have a voting week. And people can vote early, and then they can change their vote later on in the week as they just score. It should be like an exploratory process where you get to know your politicians. And it shouldn't be one of those things where your politicians have to run around and beg for money so they can do flyers and then they can do expensive radio ads and TV ads. We could do all this communication easily on the internet. So you get to this page, and we'd have summary, you could have a platform. I would love to see a discussion group where, kind of like on Reddit, the questions that people have are most upvoted. So you could see what the public would want to know about the race, and then the answers, or the best answer that the politician gave, that also got upvoted. And if they didn't like that answer, you could see all the answers get, their politician's answer get downvoted. Like they'd say, well, I didn't send or receive any classified email, and you'd be like, no, I'm downvoting that because we know that's not true. So you would have all of this information right there. And maybe you want to see the person's mannerisms. You want to see how they interact with people. So you could go to this live streams button, and you could see their most popular live streams. And the same thing with the videos if you wanted to see some pre-recorded messages and whatnot. And I say that there should be a voting week, and I have this chart in the middle. And there's no reason why when you're voting you shouldn't be able to see where the race is at the current moment. And if this is all done in open source software, there's no propensity for corruption, and there's no need to keep any of this stuff secret. And there's no like recounting the ballots. Like computers can count this stuff instantly on the fly. So you would see all of this stuff on the fly interactively. And let's say you click the discussions tab. And I did a really poor job on this slide, but in the discussions tab, you can have the most popular discussions between the two candidates and what they've posted and what their general positions are and the pushback that you have from the community. And in this particular race, and the reason why I chose this race is it was a local one, and a lot of people nationally haven't heard of it. But for me, this one was so cut and dry because I know Genevieve, and her main thing, like this is the only real thing that she was after. I mean, she ran on a bunch of stuff, but when I talked to her before she was running, she's like, Freeman, it's ridiculous that we have rape kits in the police department or in the government not tested. And this could help set some people free. This could help convict people. This could help with the victims. There's no reason not to have this tested other than someone hasn't prioritized the funding. And I don't think the amount of funding is in any way remotely an issue. So someone just doesn't want it done. So Genevieve is running on a platform basically saying that we should have the government support at the very basics half of the population, women, when they get sexually assaulted. I can't imagine why that would even be something you would need to run on. Like, that's how bad things have gotten. And her opponent, I don't know much about her. I saw a little bit, but she seems very establishment type. So to me, that was cut and dry. Genevieve was out in the community talking. She said what she was about. Summer was establishment. She's been there for a while. And as we see here in this slide, she was endorsed by the mayor. I believe she's a Republican. But at this point, I don't, especially with local races, I don't know that it matters as much. You could also go to the videos and you could see the most popular videos. This is not what the candidates want, not what the government wants, but this is what the community that uses this open source platform would want. They say, we like this video, so this is the one that shows up. This is the one that's trending. And all of that would be out in the open. It wouldn't be some mysterious Twitter algorithm or some 1984 weirdness. It would just be what the community at large thinks is the best videos and most descriptive. No chance of corruption. It's like it's all there done, right? Like, because I keep bringing up the corruption, and I just have no confidence in what our government does behind closed doors because they're so weird when you ask them for any data. Like, what? Yeah, I don't need to get into it. We all know how bad government is. And of course, when you want to be done, you've run your research, you've interacted, you've gone to facts, maybe you've engaged with your candidate in real time, you can vote for the candidate. And you see your results, and then you can go back and vote for the next set. And if you ever want to come back in, you can come back in and change your vote. And you can just see how everything is in real time. Nothing needs to be hidden. Nothing needs to be secretive. And all the people that are worried about Russia hacking the election, I don't even know what that means. I've asked a lot of people. No one can really explain it. But whatever side you come down on, this Russia hacking the election, Russia influencing the election, this would be an obvious, easy, and cheap solution. But there's a reason why those who are claiming about, crying about the Russia hacking, that mostly Democrats, you don't hear them talking about paper ballots. Now, I understand why they're not going to talk about an open source voting system. I don't think they're there yet. But they don't even talk about paper ballots, like hand-counted paper ballots. They don't even address that the voting machines have this mysterious USB port that 60 Minutes reported on decades ago being odd. Like there's just so many problems with that whole system. And the question I like the whole reason I'm doing this stream, the question I like people to ponder is that if it's easy to get information from the public, it's easy to streamline the communication between the public and the politician and then the politician and the government, why isn't anyone doing it? And that's not really a deep question. I think almost everyone says, well, yeah, the government's corrupt. Of course they don't want it. There's too much bureaucracy, blah, 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 blah. But we never really quite sit with how far that can be taken. Like, if you don't have democracy for a few years, okay, there's only so much people can do. But if you have this decade in and decade out, 5 decades, like how long have we been at war? Like, we have kids in the United States today that are in high school that have never known America to not be at war. That to me is just so wrong. Like, it's almost normalized now that homelessness is just going to be accepted. You're like, well, that's what happens when you live in a city. I mean, I don't accept that, but people don't even really fight that anymore. But now the kids growing up aren't even going to fight war because war is just normalized. That's just a thing. So I want people to think about, if you have an institution that is taking you to war, it is fighting your opinion, it is giving you poverty, why are we giving it power or assuming that it has the power to turn around and help us? And as a progressive, we're big on healthcare because it's absurd that people don't have healthcare, and we're talking about healthcare as a right and whatnot. But do you actually trust at this point people like Chuck Schumer to write a single-payer healthcare bill? It's like they're going to go to the healthcare industry. There's not. That doesn't seem like a good solution to me. So when we have easy voting solutions that could be developed, or paper ballots that could be used, and they're not, yet we are still pursuing this entity like it's going to solve our problems, I think there's a disconnect there. The example I like to give is, imagine you lost a court settlement. Someone else lost a court settlement to you, and they have to write you a letter of recommendation. Whatever, you paid them and they have to write you a letter of recommendation, and they hate you. They lost the court segment, but you're going to make them do it because you paid for whatever. They give you the first draft, and you're like, well, it doesn't make me look all that good. Can you rewrite it? And they're like, okay, yeah, I'll rewrite it. So they take it back, and then they come back. And you're like, okay, well, you made me look better, but now it's just got tons of grammatical mistakes. They're like, okay, yeah, I'll go back. And then they come back, and they're like, well, now you're interchanging Spanish. Like, the point is that if the person doesn't want to write you a good letter of recommendation, they're not going to. You can't force them. Like, you can keep pushing back. Like Judicial Watch, they keep pushing back. They say, hey, give us the documents, government. And they're like, okay, well, in 6 months we'll give it to you, which is way too long. But then in 6 months you get the documents, and miraculously they're redacted to the point where it doesn't make any sense. And that's that same push-pull. We push to government to get something, and we get crap back. And I'm not saying that the government's at fault. Certainly not saying the people in the government at fault. I'm saying the system itself isn't incentivizing things to work correctly. Just like the person who doesn't like you, forcing them to write a letter of recommendation is not a good idea. Forcing the government to try and care about us is not a good idea. Now, regardless of what you think about the people in the government, I know a lot of people that work for the government. They're great, amazing people, just like the people who work outside of government. But the institution of capitalism has encouraged us to be greedy. And with that greed, the institution of government encourages us to be corrupt. Like, are people in the military throughout really going to stand up to the 5 wars that have been started in the last 8 years? Of course not. That's like that's an absurd thing. But that has to be done. We have to stop that war. So this notion that the institution that is so far off course in terms of caring for you and I, capitalism and government, we're going to trust that institution to take care of us, and that's the same institution that is administering our vote, the way in which we communicate with it. Like, it's no wonder why our vote is such a mess. It couldn't possibly be good because they don't want our input. And that's the biggest problem. And I'm not saying we should stop voting, but we need to be very aware of the motivations of the institutions behind what we are trying to get to help us. We need to be aware of what the government is really after, what they are incentivized to do, what the Congress is incentivized to do, what all the lobbyists are incentivized to do, and we need to make our plans for the next generation accordingly. If we know for a fact that democracy isn't working or that government isn't sustainable, maybe we don't need to fix it now for ourselves, but we do need to fix it at some point for the next generation. And that's why I think we need to be very aware and open to new ideas. We need to be thinking outside the box. If voting solutions are this easy and simple and cheap, and we are not doing it, what does that say about those who we are petitioning for help? So that's what it would be like if government cared about us and how we would be voting. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next stream.